Yeah, so I was asked to present on Code Red. There was a lot of questions and concerns that came out of the River Fire and the Bennett Fire. So we thought we'd put a quick presentation together that cover some of the questions that we got. So the things we're going to talk about today, Code Red emergency alerts with registered accounts, the Code Red smartphone app, wireless emergency alerts, which a lot of people haven't heard of, but likely received during the Bennett Fire and the River Fire, and then the emergency alerting system. And my cat's walking across the screen. Got a short video here Jen was able to find that just gives folks an overview of how the Code Red system works. It's like a minute and a half.
Public agencies have a responsibility to alert and warn the public about emergencies, often in life and death situations. If an emergency threatens your area, how will you warn residents? Your team needs tools that can quickly activate emergency response plans. Code Red is an emergency notification platform from OnSolve that delivers geo-targeted alerts across different channels, including telephones, text message, email, social media, mobile apps, iPaws, and virtually any communication device. Whether you're sending alerts regarding evacuation orders, severe weather, sheltering in place, missing persons, coordinating first response teams, or power outage updates, Code Red is more than a notification tool. It fosters public engagement, allowing you to connect with your community quickly. Code Red uses geolocation technology to precisely target areas affected, allowing you to reach a specific geographic area, down to the street or floor of a building. Here's how it works. You simply draw a target area on a map. Choose your desired communication channels. Create your message and hit send. Messages are sent with just a few clicks. With more than 60 years of combined experience, OnSolve knows that you need a quick, efficient way to communicate with citizens. That's why we've made Code Red easily integrated into your existing workflows. Code Red has been battle-tested by more than 10,000 agencies across North America. Our highly trained client support staff is available 24 hours a day to be your first line of service when facing emergency situations. Know who is in your corner when you need it most. Code Red from OnSolve will be there when disaster strikes.
Okay, who's ready to sign up for Code Red? Let's see if I can advance the slides or if it's stuck on this video. So Code Red is an opt-in system, so you have to sign up to get Code Red alerts in our community. I think a lot of us know that. Bob said that at the beginning of the meeting. So you can sign up by calling 211. You can dial 1-833 dial 211 or call 211, or you can register for a managed account by going to readynevadacounty.org/emergency alerts. I just want to touch briefly on the difference between the 211 sign up and then the managed account. The 211 sign up, essentially 211 is going to log on to Code Red and they're going to create a guest account and they'll sign you up. And what that is really, it's like a snapshot in time of your name, your address, your phone number, your email. So if you wanted to go back and change that, 211 can't really do that. You'd have to work through the actual Code Red vendor. So it really behooves you to actually set up a managed account. That way you can have your own username and login and go back in and modify the account. And so I think what you saw there was for these registered accounts, the Code Red messages that are being sent, we can either draw a shape or a map, which is how we used to do things last year. But now that we have the zone-based evacuation system, all of those puzzle pieces are individual, essentially, files that we can turn on and off in the Code Red system. And what I like about that video is you kind of get to see the back end of Code Red from the perspective of folks that are sending the messages. So that's what we're doing now. When we send messages to the community, we're choosing which zones get an evacuation warning or an order, and then we send that message out. So where you've registered for your managed account, that address will determine whether or not you receive the Code Red message or not. So when you're getting a warning or an order, it should be pretty clear to you that you're either in or out, depending on those circumstances. So this is what it looks like when you go to our website, when you go to readynevadacounty.org/emergency alerts, and then you see the little button that you click on for register for Code Red. That takes you directly to the OnSolve website. That's the vendor that runs Code Red for us, where you can sign up for that managed account. I've got some links here that when the presentation's over, I'll drop them into the chat. But if you were one of those people that signed up with 211 and you need to contact Code Red, or you have questions about your own Code Red account, here's the phone number. Here's their website and their email. And then we have some FAQs that you can get from our website about Code Red as well. And then I've also got a video that we made with our public information officer that we pushed out after the river fire that's going to capture a lot of the same things that we're talking about today, how we've really bundled and tried to put together, many safety nets around emergency alert and warning. So this video is very focused on the river fire, but it'll be talking about Code Red, the Code Red app, wireless emergency alerts, and how those worked for the river fire. So now we'll talk about the Code Red app. I think this is part of the demystifying. I think a lot of people are getting the registered account that's tied to a physical address mixed up with the Code Red app. They're both Code Red. They have that in common, but the commonalities, they start to fall apart after that. So this is an app, as you see here is a screenshot of where you can go download this app to your phone. So you need to download it. You need to adjust the settings for you personally. So that means turning on a bubble or a radius that you'll receive messages. You need to make sure that you will get notifications. You need to have your location services on. This is not based on your address. This is based on where you are currently. So as you move across the county, based on your bubble you've created, you may move into or out of areas where there are active Code Red messages. So very different from that anchor, if you will, that was set at your home's address when you registered for a managed account. So I say, think of this as an antenna for Code Red alerts, right? While you're out moving around, this app will hopefully pick up nearby alerts that are affecting you and can tell you if there's something going on. This is, again, one of the safety nets. Don't depend on this one thing. Have it as a redundant system to get Code Red notifications in our community. Okay, another short video just on the app. This one's about 1.5 minutes.
During a crisis, real-time updates from emergency professionals can provide life-saving instructions and information. As a resident, it's important that you understand the situation and how best to respond to it. However, it can be very challenging for authorities to reach everyone quickly with accurate updates. That is why communities like yours are using the Code Red mobile alert app. This advanced technology provides real-time, location-specific alerts to subscribers anywhere in the US and Canada. You can download the app for free from the Google Play and Apple Store, making it easy to receive alerts. First, choose the types of alerts you want to receive. Define your alert radius, and decide whether you'd like to opt into weather alerts. When a message is sent, you will automatically receive a push notification directly to your mobile device. With an easy-to-use interface, quickly navigate the interactive map to zoom in or out and see all active alerts in your area. Color-coded icons help define whether an alert is an emergency, weather-related, or community bulletin. The Code Red mobile alert app can provide the information you need before, during, and after a disaster. Download the Code Red mobile alert app today.
Okay, so yeah, I just want to point out that the Code Red app, so like Yuba County, for instance, uses Code Red. So if you live in Penn Valley, for instance, and you have this app and you have it set out to 25 miles and there's a fire with evacuations in Yuba County, you could be getting Yuba County Code Red messages through the app in Penn Valley, but that doesn't mean that emergency is directly affecting you. So you have to filter these a little bit, right? What you see, you have to take that message and then try to compare it with something else under these circumstances, right? Unless it says specifically like, this is the Nevada County Office of Emergency Services. Zone NCOE 021 is under an evacuation order. That's pretty clear. But if you're seeing things that don't quite make sense, check YubaNet or another one of our trusted news sources to vet that. And that's a real life example where we had a little bit of confusion with cross-county events. I also want to point out that Nevada County Office of Emergency Services, while we have a Code Red account for this county, we don't manage the app. So we really have nothing to do with the app. The app is a vehicle for the messages that we send, but we don't have anything to do with it. So you see here, it got 2 out of 5 stars. There's been some frustrations with it. And, you know, those are things that OnSolve has to really try to work through. So I don't want you to put, again, all your faith in this one thing. Use this as one of the safety nets or one of the tools that you have to stay informed during wildfire season. All right, next slide. So now we're going to move on. I've only got 3 more slides and then we'll be done to talk about the wireless emergency alerts. So again, I think this was another point of confusion because people were getting these alerts. They're not used to seeing these, and we haven't really taught the public about these. But this is another tool that it's a FEMA system that we can use under really extreme circumstances, like a fast-moving wildfire where there are lives and property that are being threatened, that we can message the public. So this is similar to Code Red, but different. Code Red, you have to sign up. Like we said, it's opt-in. So if you're not in the Code Red system, when we message an area like a zone, you won't get the message. For wireless emergency alerts, we actually draw a circle on a map, just like Code Red, but in a separate piece of software called iPause. And what it does is it actually pings from the cell phone or from the cell towers to all cell phones inside that circle. And so it's, a lot of us didn't know this. I didn't know this until I recently learned that every one of our phones have a chip in the phone that can talk to this federal wireless emergency alert system. And so even if you have a phone that you aren't on a paid network, like a lot of people have an old phone and they give it to their kids to pretend with, and they plug it in and it's charged, that phone will get the message, even if it's not on a paid plan, because it's pinging a different part of your phone's infrastructure. So it's really an incredible technology that we can message a lot of people. We can cast a very wide net for a special circumstance like a fast-moving wildfire. The challenge with it is, unless you have a really new phone, like an iPhone 10, 11, or 12, that really is smart and knows where it is in the world, it will likely get the message, but it doesn't know if it's inside or outside of that little circle that Paul drew on his computer. And so it will default to showing you that message. So I bring this up because we will use this system when there are evacuation orders in place, but there's going to be a little bit of over messaging because it's going to go a little bit further than we want the message to. We accept that because we're very specific in how we phrase our messages. So you can see on the slide here, we have the exact same phrasing that went out in the Code Red order for the river fire. And then we literally copied that and took it from what we sent in Code Red, and then we sent it out via the wireless emergency alert. So we're using 2 different systems to send the same message to our public. So federal system, you're not signing up for it. This message comes from County OES. And due to the phone's technology, it's going to probably go a little bit further and wider than we want. That's where you just got to read the message and go, does this apply to me or not? I know what zone I live in. I know that I don't see any of the zones I care about in that message. So I'm going to disregard that message. One more last thing with these wireless emergency alerts. A lot of people get a really funny buzz and a funny sound on their phone. It made a very distinct sound. I'm sure many of you got these messages during the Bennett and River Fire. You went to look at it and then it disappeared. It's not a text message. It's like an Amber Alert. So to get it back, you have to swipe down on your phone. So spread the word. Next time you're out there and you get one of these, you got to swipe down on the phone to recall it if you didn't read it initially. So a little bit of a nuance there. The last system we'll talk about is the emergency alerting system. This is a system that goes across the entire county, like within the county border, based on our county code when our office sends this out. And this is the last of the tools that we use. We have Code Red, which is going to go out to our registered users and go out over the mobile app. We're going to send messages via the wireless emergency alert. And then we build text into the emergency alerting system, which then puts scrolling text along the bottom of TV screens. And then it also sends an audible message out over all the radio stations in our county. So if you were tuned in to KNCO, KVMR, it would have interrupted broadcasting with that kind of familiar sound and then started playing either a robot voice text message or a voice message that we've recorded. We try to get a quickly recorded message in English and Spanish and then get that out because we know the robot voice is hard to understand. So countywide goes over radio and then scrolling text along TV. I'll end with this graphic, a really great graphic that Jen Tamo in our office made that I think summarizes really well all the different systems, what they do and what they don't do, and then how you can be notified through there. I can share this graphic with the coalition. I think the coalition has also created its own really great graphic for the people that want to take a deep dive into these systems, and it really expands and builds upon this graphic that's here. And at the end of the presentation, I'll drop some links into the chat where you can find those frequently asked questions and some of those videos around these different systems. I guess I'll summarize by saying we've created a lot of different safety nets. We hope that you as residents don't fall through any of them during a fast moving wildfire. I hope what the community sees is that we're trying to use as many mediums as possible to get the message out to you that there's a fast moving wildfire and that you need to get out of the way. With that, I will stop sharing and I will take questions.
I thought maybe we'd hold the questions till after Susan does her short presentations. What she has may answer a few questions, and then we'll take questions at the end. Yeah, Jeff?
Yeah, there was one question that came to me about the emergency, the wireless emergency alert. Where does that come in on the question? Is it like a text message? Or is it just, what is the app on your phone that delivers it, so to speak, I guess is the question.
So the wireless emergency alert is, it's presenting to you in the form of a text, but it doesn't come through via an app, and it does not come through via the text part of your phone. It's, like I said, it's talking to a part of your phone that we don't use very often, that's really only used for emergencies. Okay. So it's going to present itself as text. To see it after you've opened your phone, you have to swipe down to recall the message. So I honestly can't tell you where it lives, but it's not going to live where your text messages live. It's not going to live where the Code Red app lives.
I didn't know I had so much stuff living in my phone. It's just
maybe we've added more mystery than we wanted to our alerts, Bob, I guess.
No, that's what we did, Paul.
I'm a little worried about all the stuff I'm carrying around in my pocket. Okay, Susan, why don't you go ahead and then we'll take questions about this.
Okay, so under the education resource section of the coalition, under the you and yours, we have a new thing called the Code Red Explainer. And I'm going to open it up here and say that you may not be interested in this information. You may have understood it all from Paul's explanation and the nice graphic that they have. But Nick Johnson and I are both sort of nerdy types. And we heard a lot of questions in the last meeting right after the River and the Bennett fires about like, what's the difference? And what about this and what about that? And so if you have friends who weren't lucky enough to be here and understand this entire explanation, then this document may help them. It's side one. This Nick is the one who prepared this, and I had done the side two. So this is an explanation of the kinds of emergency wildfire alerts you can receive. For a detailed explanation, see the other side, and we'll be there in a minute. And this has all the disclaimers on it that no technology can be guaranteed to work at all times. And especially if the cell towers burn down or your phone's turned off or muted, you may not get them. Don't rely on just one method, like Paul said. And there are other methods of staying informed that are in the readynevadacounty.org handbook. But so if you wanted to really see what's the difference in the kinds of messages you might get from each type, that's what Nick's chart shows here. With this type of alert, you'll get an evacuation warning, you'll get an order, you'll get an all clear message. Well, at least they'll be sent. All of these three kinds will be sent. Again, whether you get them or not depends on whether your phone's turned off on or off and other things. If you have the Code Red mobile app, you might get it. You might get the evacuation order. You might get the all clear message if you're within 25 miles if your phone is within 25 miles of where the event is happening. On the wireless emergency alert system, the federal system that Paul talked about, you only get the order for that. The federal requirements on that system don't allow them to send out a warning or an all clear, but you will get an order on that system if your phone can get a signal from a working tower. And then the one that interrupts TV and radio, same thing. Orders only over TV and radio, but not the warning, not the all clear message. And then of course the high-low sirens. Hopefully if you've been here before, you know that the high-low sirens only mean get out now. This is an evacuation order. You have to leave right now. And then if you want any more detail than that, for a detailed explanation, see the other side. And I had come up with this. And if this looks like too much information to you, then don't read it. If you get everything, we're not forcing this down anybody's throat, but it's here for people to have questions. With the emergency alert system, will OES send you out a warning or an order when a wildfire threatens your home or other addresses? Yes, yes, yes. Notice on both charts that the Code Red emergency system is the only one where you see yes, 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 or anything that we might be talking about over here. Code Red mobile app, as Paul said, it's not a county thing at all. It's a commercial app for Apple and Android phones and tablets. It only sends sound alerts. I think there's a message that goes with it, but it makes a sound so that you know that it's happening. Near your device's location, it's for smartphones and tablets only, whereas with the emergency alert system, you can also sign up for texts and emails. You get a yes there. And maybe you'll get something on your phone app if it's within where your phone is. So if you're away, if you're traveling, if you're anywhere more than 25 miles away or whatever you've set your warning radius as, you may not get a warning. So this is why you don't want just the phone app. You should be signed up for this and then use this optionally. So if you're working 30 miles away from where your home is, you won't get this, but you could get this. And this is the one that comes to your phone, whether you can't sign up for this, like Paul talked about. It's loud. It's the one, I got one on my phone. It made this huge buzzing sound and it scared my mom when she got hers. Cell phones only that are in an evacuation order zone. Again, this is the one where you only get an order, not a warning, and you can't register for it. And then this right over here, will OES send an alert for emergencies impacting your home address? Yep. Maybe if your phone is within whatever warning radius you set for on the app. And over here, cell phones that are near but not in an order zone may also get the alert, know your zone. So that's what Paul was talking about how that the federal system, wireless system, will tend to over message, but the county believes, and the coalition would agree, that more messages going out is better than fewer messages going out. And if you get an extra message and you're thinking like, well, I don't need this, that may be the only message that some other person gets. So know your zone so that if you get that kind coming in on your phone, you can read it and know whether it applies to you or not. So that's what the coalition Code Red explainer is, and it is here under this, and that's it.
Okay, so now we have an opportunity for questions. Are there, I don't see any in the chat. So are there any questions from anybody listening?
I was asked.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Robert, I was working at Atria in Grass Valley the day the river fire hit. And we had a lot of residents' phones pinging throughout the facility because they had set their phones up to where they lived previous to moving into Atria. So it was pretty alarming to hear all these phones going off in the dinner hour with all our residents, where the management staff was looking at the fire and where it was, and we weren't in a warning yet. But it just strikes me that it might be worthwhile to help our residents at Atria and Eschaton and some of the larger facilities set their phones properly so they're not alarming all the other residents.
Yeah, that's certainly, I could see how that would be disconcerting for folks. And so if somebody has a managed account, they can go back and change that. They can log back in and they can change the type of alerts they're getting. They might want to move the address from that previous location to their new location.
Right.
If they're having trouble with that, they can connect with OnSolve. We've provided that number here as a 1-800, the 1866 number. And then I was asked a direct question from Paulette about if you've signed up with 211, which some of these residents might have, how do you get a managed account? So just essentially just log on and create a managed account, because what you can do is you can stack notifications on top of an address. So if somebody gets a managed account and then they put all that same information in for that place that they had previously registered just with 211, it's not like it's going to bump that other user out. So the example I give is like the Rood Center, the county building. A lot of employees will have a managed account specific to that facility, and so there might be 30 different people who are all registered there with managed accounts as registrants and users. But it's okay. You can have multiple people at one location, and Code Red will notify all of them when that address is within the bubble of the evacuation warning order.
Go ahead, Parissa.
Yeah.
I am wondering, can we download and print that two-sided form that you showed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You just go and then we'll put the link in the chat again. But yes, that is definitely, you just click on it, and when it opens in your browser, go to, I use Chrome, and there's usually a little place in the upper right in a Chrome browser where I can click. It has a little down arrow, and it'll download it for you.
So it's called the Explainer.
Yes, it's called.
And now, how long is this link going to be up here?
Forever.
Oh, so I just go to chat?
No.
We'll
all you do is go to the website. Go to the coalition website.
What is the website?
Okay, we'll put that in the chat, and you can see that in the chat. Jeff, can you manage that for us? He's working on it right now, I can tell.
Okay, thank
It's already
you.
there.
There it is, right. Education resources section. Scroll down. Let me share my screen again real fast. So when you get to the coalition website, over here, you click on education resources, which is where we are already. And you go past the best of the best. You go past the outside stuff. You go past the house stuff. And you get to you and yours, and it's right there.
Okay, and I was writing down the website, but it disappeared when you put this up.
Look in the chat box on your Zoom. As soon as I stop my share, you should be able to see your chat box. When you click on it, so what happened right there was I just clicked the link. And like I say, I'm in a Chrome browser. So if you're using
here it is. I'm in Chrome.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's where you go. And then put your hover your mouse on it. It says download. And then click that and it will download to your hard drive. And then you can print it out from there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right, I don't see any other questions in the chat and don't hear any. So we'll move along. While I'm failing again, I don't have slides for the next two presenters, so I'll just have to introduce them. We have Andrew Wilkinson, and he has some information for us about telecom resiliency during a PSPS event.
That's right. Good evening, Coalition. Hopefully you can hear me. My name's Andrew Wilkinson. I do have some content to share, so I'll just go ahead and share that on the screen with everybody. As we've heard from Code Red, it's all very reliant on the fact that we actually have communications. Let me just get rid of some of the stuff that's decided to show up all of a sudden. So you'll be pleased to hear that, you know, in our world here, that the state has actually taken the feedback about some of the situations that are making it kind of dangerous in these rural communities, especially in these high fire risk areas. And they've taken decisive action. I think it's really good news what they've done. I think many of us have understood that when we have power outages, what we used to rely on for being that telephone no longer works the way it used to. When I moved out here into the forest, it was the one thing that we could count on, you know, in the snow and other such things, that we could always rely on the old copper phone line. And technology's changed. The copper phone lines are dying a slow and meaningful death out there. And the California Public Utilities Commission has taken what I see as being some very decisive steps to make it very clear to the facilities providers, in other words, the people like in our area, like AT&T, Verizon, Comcast, Race, etc., that they need to step up and they need to do a much better job about making sure that we have access to communications during times of natural disasters, which is really, you know, we're talking about the fires here, the wildfires, and also the grid outages, whether it's for, you know, to protect us from fires, or, you know, in extreme weather conditions. You know, we do get occasional heavy snows, which can mean people are out of communications. So back in February this year, they actually issued a decision. It's about 100 pages if you're really into reading long decisions. But I've done the hard work for you and have summarized out some of the new key requirements. So this applies to all of the wireline providers. And there's some interesting delineation between, you know, who they actually are. But think about this as applying to AT&T, who have DSL, Verizon, of course, AT&T has mobile, Verizon, they have mobile, Comcast has wireline, and then recently Race Communications has a growing presence up here in our particular area. So these regulations apply to wireline providers, and they apply to them where they have facilities in these high-risk fire areas, such as ourselves. Someone may also know, well, 2 and 3 are described as the tiers, but it definitely applies to where we live in Nevada County. The new regulations that the CPUC have put in place require all of these wireline providers to submit an annual emergency operations plan. And that's really good news for us, because one of the main things it says in there is that they have to maintain 72 hours of backup power. So, you know, we've all been through this experience where, you know, the internet works for a few hours and then suddenly it's gone and we're out of communications. And think about these nightmare scenarios where something happens in the middle of the night, the communications go out because there's no backup power. We don't get phone notifications. We don't get code reds on our mobile phones, and it can be a real problem. So they are up in the ante, and they're telling people, these providers, that they need to go spend some money, which is going to be painful for these guys because this is going to be an investment for them. But they have to be able to demonstrate they can maintain 72 hours of backup power to keep this core infrastructure alive for communications. Now, we may not be excited about it, but they are allowing them to use diesel generators because in many cases, some of these facilities do have higher loads and diesel is the way to go. But they're really leaning on them for renewable and green power systems because, you know, whilst we want the communications, we don't want the emissions and the noise that's going to go with this. They are busily doing this. So you may have seen people or some of these companies out looking at their facilities and starting to implement some of these things, because the initial 8 months they gave starting in February is now coming due in around this October timeframe that we're in. And it does extend for a further 18 months into sort of full compliance. So these facilities providers do need to prioritize, you know, what they're going to go working on. And they need to make sure that they really step up the game to make sure that these vital communications, which you've all become very accustomed to, are alive and available for us. And I think we all need to understand that, technologies continue to change, and that old faithful copper phone line is not going to be around to support us. As some of you may already know, that many of our copper phone lines are actually migrating onto digital systems such as fiber optic. And once those power systems fails, that old dial tone from the copper phone lines actually no longer works for us. So the net for me, this little segue here is that it's taken some time to happen, but the state is definitely stepping up and is requiring the major providers out there who provide, phone, internet, broadband power, broadband access to improve their ability to maintain this critical infrastructure, so that the great work from the Code Red and all of the other things can actually reach the public. And we can have the ability to reach out to friends. We can coordinate where we're going to relocate to if we have to, leave for a fire. These things are clearly very essential for us. And the plan actually goes on to ask them to describe how they plan to rebuild things, because as you know, if a fire impacts an area, it can be very devastating. And the quicker that they can rebuild key infrastructure, the easier it is for us to pick up the pieces and continue on with life. So that's again part of their requirements here, is that they not only need to say how they're going to keep this up and running, but they're also going to ask and make sure that there is a plan to actually repair the facilities, because for many of us, it's not only just an entertainment, it's a facet of our life. We can't have doctor's appointments now for telemedicine. We can't work, we can't collaborate with people. We can't do banking. So I think this again is a realization that the internet and broadband is a major facet of our life. And just because we live in a high wildfire area, we shouldn't have additional challenges placed upon us. So I think great job for the CPUC for taking the bull by the horns and mandating this. And just to segue, I decided to do something about fiber optic locally here with my own company, Nevada County Fiber, up on the top of Red Dog Road. And that's how I became aware of it, because as small as I am, just a one-man band, I am a utility company. And so I've got some firsthand information about these requirements and what they're asking the much bigger providers to go out there and do. So let me pause there. I want to keep it brief. I know time is short for people, and I'll pass it back on to Robert. And Robert's on mute.
There you go. Thank you very much. Sorry, electronics, not with me. Anyway, any questions for Andrew and about the power backup?
I have a question. Andrew, we still have a copper landline, and I hope to keep it for as long as AT&T will provide for it. But if anything goes wrong, it takes 2 weeks to have somebody to come out and fix it. And I've seen rumors on social media that they're just going to stop supporting it at some point. Do you have any kind of inside information on what's happening with just the whole copper? Is the CPUC
yes
any requirements to get them to provide better service or maintenance on copper lines?
Well, I think there's an ongoing discussion around it. I think AT&T came back and said it's increasingly expensive for us to maintain this, so they wanted to get a rate increase to offset the cost of support. And as we all know, they're real happy when phone lines get disconnected, because they are mandated, because they are the incumbent provider in the area. So there is requirements for them to provide service. As many people may have heard, that with DSL, they don't have those same requirements. It's an unregulated service, and AT&T is aggressively seeking all and any means to get out of the DSL business, which quite frankly is a dead technology. So I think the tipping point will come. I did see some numbers from AT&T, and the migration away from copper to mobile phones has been huge. The table has really tilted in that direction. I don't know the specifics, but I think they've seen up to sort of an 80% decline. So it really is on its last legs. I think it'll be a fight to the end, because many people, it's a facet of our lives. So I think it'll be tough for the CPUC to roll over, but I think eventually I'm sure it's bound to happen.
Andrew, question.
Sure, go ahead.
I have triple play
Hello?
with, this is Robin. I have triple play with Comcast Xfinity. It
Mhm.
includes telephone, which appears to be hardwired, but of course isn't. It's VPN.
Great.
Will that all keep going together with internet and television?
It will, yeah. So Comcast will be required to maintain the communications. Now, whether Comcast says, listen, the triple play with video is not critical, we're not going to do that, I don't have that insight. But they will be required to maintain any phone service they're providing for you, as well as any broadband access. So I think the net answer is yes, I'm sure that they will have to provide that.
Are there any similar requirements for the wireless providers?
So there is a requirement for these providers to make sure backhaul is provided. So if you're thinking like a smarter broadband, it hasn't reached as far as them yet, but they are expecting people like AT&T and the big providers to make sure that they have backhaul to their towers. And it's kind of an interesting area. There isn't a whole lot of regulation around the wireless side of things, but the state, I didn't realize until I read the document, they do actually have the ability to provide jurisdiction over it. So I think that they're going after the very large companies first that are regulated as part of having a utility license. And I suspect that they might start to lean on some of the smaller broadband companies to do similar things. But for the moment, they have not been included because this is for facilities-based wireline as opposed to wireless. But AT&T has included that because of their mobile towers.
So is AT&T wireless included or just wireline?
Well, so without getting into too many of the details, so they have to provide wireline to their mobile towers. So that's why they are included, because it's the feed to the wireless towers that has to be included. And AT&T and Verizon and T-Mobile are specifically included because I think the statistics are that more than 80% of emergency calls are now coming from wireless devices. And clearly this is aimed at making sure those are robust and reliable. So we should see better resiliency at the cell towers in terms of their ability to maintain power.
So do you know if the 72-hour backup power, for example, is a requirement of the wireless towers?
Yes, for the big providers like AT&T, Verizon, it is. For the smaller ones like Smarter Broadband, I do not believe it applies to them at this particular point in time.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Hello, Priscilla.
Yeah, I have AT&T wireless, but I do not get service at my home.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to change?
Unfortunately not. I wish it would. I think that there's a lot more that we can do as a progressive community here to improve what we have. I have not seen the CPUC take that up, but I think that they should, because frankly, if we are living in these rural communities, I think that we should have fair and reasonable access to mobile communications. So that's my personal opinion. I haven't seen them moving in that particular direction. But as you might have heard on the news, there's a lot of investment going in for infrastructure to improve broadband for communities like ourselves. And once you have high-speed broadband at your home, it will actually help with your wireless phone because you can make calls over the wireless that's actually inside of your home. So I think that's where we're going to see the most relief, is the pushing ahead with investing in broadband infrastructure, and therefore your mobile phone by default will work better if you enable Wi-Fi calling from your home location.
So what does that have to do with landlines? Because I heard they're going to phase out landlines.
Well, that was a question that Susan brought up about the phasing out. Many people have got rid of their landlines because they prefer to only have a mobile device, because it's just one device for them. Many people prefer to have the comfort of a phone at home. It's been very traditional for many years. So there has been a natural move away from the landlines, as we know, with the copper phone lines. And I know that AT&T is finding it increasingly more expensive to support a much smaller audience with a technology that's actually much more expensive to maintain. And I think they're making representations to try to alleviate their requirement to provide service. But as yet, I don't have any definitive information about, how quickly that will happen. But I think over time it eventually will, and it might take 5, 10, 15 years longer yet.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
that's fine.
it's not around the corner. It's not something that you should lose any sleep about right at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much. This is all a lot to take in.
Let's take in. Yes, I know.
I have a question about the may use diesel generators, preferred green power. Preferred green power, I'd like to know what you mean by that, because I've spent over $6,000 on my Generac, as well as my neighbors, many of our neighbors, because we can't rely on, the power here in California, as we saw in Texas with the windmills freezing up. They can't seem to rely on green power either. We've really eliminated a lot of and replaced it with a lot of solar and wind here in California, causing lots of power outages. So what are we talking about replacing diesel generators with?
Yeah, so I think so. Remember, in California, there are emissions regulations for diesel generators because they want to remove certain pollution. They're looking for hybrid systems which have lithium-ion batteries, for example. There are hydrogen fuel cell solutions out there. You can certainly run much of this infrastructure from solar panels as well. So what they don't want to do, and I think it's reasonable pushback, is that they want the companies to provide coverage for these periods. And sometimes, we might get 2 or 3, sometimes we don't get very many. But I think the thought process, without interpreting too much of their ruling, is that diesel generators is a very available solution for those periods of time when we do need to provide backup power. It's not what everyone prefers, but we don't want to put more obstacles in the way of these companies stepping up to the plate. Hence, they're saying diesel generators are okay, but if you can have green and renewable systems, that would be the preference.
Yeah, that's a big if, but I'm in favor of reliable energy, whether that's diesel or not. But just because, a lot of this stuff is emergency. We have hospitals and other things that have to be addressed. And, everybody loves green power, but you have to be practical too.
Okay, so thank you very much. I think we need to move on. We've got one more presentation. We can take questions in the chat, and then we'll try to answer them. So Jamie, you're up next, and let's hear about the South County fuel break, please.
Hello, everybody. I do want to start, Bob reached out to me and asked me if I could give everybody a little bit of an education first on what a shaded fuel break is, and then capture all the interest in the South County fuel break. I do want to clarify for everybody that, we have a great partnership with OES in the County of Nevada. Paul was being a little bit gracious. They are technically the recipients of the South County Fuel Break Award. So I want to make sure that they get all the recognition and for their hard work on that grant. What's happened simultaneously is that Fire Safe Council has gotten a grant for a Forest Health Shaded Fuel Break project in the Tahoe National Forest. And so I'll be sharing my screen here with everybody. Let's see. Can everybody see me at full screen?
Not there. Yes,
Yeah.
Now.
Okay. All right. So first off, the question always comes up when one of these projects is awarded, what really is a shaded fuel break? The nuts and bolts of it, we did a lot of messaging when Ponderosa West, which is our first large scale fuel break in the community. We had a lot of pictures and oohs and ahs, but right now, what the goal is of a shaded fuel break is to really leave and promote healthy tree canopy and then reduce those ladder fuels and ground fuels below that canopy. And then you thin and prune and establish space amongst the trees below. And then, these treatments are really kind of beneficial in a shaded fuel break because you can preclude invasive species from propagating. And then depending on the treatment types, hopefully eliminate those invasive species later on down the road. And so this is just an example of what a shaded fuel break looks like. versus what a fire break looks like. That's always a question that tends to come up. And what you'll see with South County field break here shortly, we just have the mapping, but fire breaks are oftentimes an extension of a road system, and the South County field break is a combination of those two items. So moving on here, the $5 million grant award that was awarded to Fire Safe Council is a partnered project with the Forest Service, and it has multiple locations throughout Nevada County. So there'll be different types of prescriptions in that, dependent on the location, and those are captured here. This map isn't really clear. I apologize. There's a lot here, but these are those multiple locations that we have. So we have a section in the town of Washington. We have a section up on the North San Juan Ridge, as well as the Highway 20 corridor and the Scotts Flats areas that is impacted, and will have multiple treatments and shaded fuel breaks along these firewise communities. And so the ones who will get the most impact out of that first project will be Ubet, Cascade Shores, Scotts Flat Pines, Lightning Tree, Town of Washington, and Cruise on Grade, Old Mill, and Lake City Grizzly up on the North San Juan Ridge. And then moving on to the second one, which is the South County field break. This is another example of a shaded field break. And this is what the map that we see here is in the blue lines. You'll notice that that's the road system. And so what they've done is they've identified a project. This project came out of our local CAL FIRE NEU unit. Matt Wallen put a lot of time and energy into this project, and I'm sure he's really happy to see this one come to fruition. And so the County of Nevada and Fire Safe Council are really happy to be expediting this project. As we know, it's an evacuation route for our Alta Sierra Firewise community and several of those other communities. But what you'll see is the blue line is really the road system, and then it's captured the adjacent parcels with additional fuel reduction work. And so, and again, this will be various fuel treatments for the property owners involved in this program, different prescriptions based on homeowners' desires on their private properties. But while we're effectively reducing the fuel load and increasing evacuation route clearing and clearance. And so the Firewise communities that are in or adjacent to this would be Greater Alta Sierra, Bear River Ranches, Golden Oaks, and Sierra Knolls. And then the next question always comes is like, we have all these great projects and all this great funding coming down the line. Can I get access to that funding? First, the two projects that were already highlighted, those have been long time in the works and planned, and mapping's been done, and so they're kind of set in stone. So unless you live within those project boundaries, that's not always an option. But that being said, there's a lot of funding coming down the line and a lot of opportunities for grants. And so we want to make sure that all of our Firewise communities have access to help with their own projects within their communities, whether it's evacuation route clearing, shaded fuel breaks, to add to our network of shaded fuel breaks that are anticipated to be implemented throughout Nevada County. And so the first steps here are talk with your local resources. So you are always welcome to start with the Fire Safe Council office, schedule time, reach out to the office and say, hey, I've got this great idea. Let's bounce some ideas off of your staff and our Firewise community to see what we can do to bring this to fruition. Additional resources there is please talk to your local fire districts and your CAL FIRE staff and make sure that we get their best input on your projects. And then we have a really solid partnership between our fire districts, Fire Safe Council, and County of Nevada. And typically this falls with the Office of Emergency Services. But if you have a great idea and you want to make sure that we're all listening, let's all network together and make sure that we get these projects the attention they need. And so once you've kind of gone through those steps, if you come into the Fire Safe Council office and we have a project that is, slated to start, we can absolutely help you with the planning, mapping, grant writing, funding opportunities. One of the great things that we have as a designated 501c3 nonprofit is we have a great avenue towards a lot of these grant funding opportunities. And so we are your access point for FireWise community projects that you may not necessarily be eligible for outside of, working with Fire Safe Council. In addition to that, the County of Nevada is oftentimes an eligible entity to apply for these as well, which is why we identified them as a resource. It's really great to have collaborative partnerships in the community and identify these projects out ahead of time. Right now, we are looking for additional projects for, we'll be revamping our CWPP coming up soon. And so identifying the needs in the community and in your FireWise communities is going to be crucial to making sure that we have a really robust and updated community wildfire protection plan for Nevada County. So please bring those into the office. You're welcome to call and talk to my front office staff. You're welcome to call or talk to me directly. I'll drop my contact information in the chat. Just know that sometimes some of these projects are on a smaller scale, and one of the things that we do have difficulty time doing is finding small scale grants for little portions of Nevada County. And so one of the things that you've seen in the Forest Health grant is that we have multiple areas that we are addressing. So a lot of times we can kind of bundle grant programs, same types of treatments, different areas. But if we have multiple communities interested in evacuation route clearing, we can apply for evacuation route clearing funds and identify several different communities. So again, please come to us if you have any questions about how to accomplish that. And then I do want to just, make a quick note that there are a few other FireWise communities that have collaboratively been working together. And we have pending FireWise community projects. One that we're working on right now is the Deer Creek Fuel Break, and that includes 5 FireWise communities within that footprint. Deer Creek Southside, Greater Champion Mine, Kentucky Flat, Mountain Lake Estates, and Echo Ridge. And then down, just a little bit further down the hill, we have Lake Wildwood Fuel Reduction Project, which mainly encompasses within the gates of Lake Wildwood, but also impacts Wildwood Heights. So, you may, if you live in one of those areas and you have some ideas about a project, you may want to coordinate with those folks as well. If you have any questions, I am available to answer.
Okay, it's a lot of information, a lot of work going on in the county, a lot of trees coming down, which is good.
A lot of wildfire preparedness.
Huh?
I said a lot of wildfire preparedness.
Absolutely. So are there any questions for Jamie? Okay, so one thing that we can do to help her and help the county, and it was put in the chat by Pat Leash, if you're in a FireWise community, this is the time to report the time and the expense you have put into maintaining the 100 feet of defensible space around your home or hardening your home. Every FireWise community has a person who is putting this report together. And the importance of it is, number one, the number, which normally at the end of the year has a whole lot of commas in it when you aggregate the entire county. It shows the effort that we are putting ourselves into fire safety, but it's also used to demonstrate matching funds in some grants. Some grants require, we'll give you 5 million if you match it with 5 million. Well, this is where the 5 million comes from. It's the work that we do every day to maintain our house. Now, mowing the lawn does not count. Your wife tells you to mow the lawn, you got to mow the lawn. But it's when you chop down the trees. One of my neighbors in my area replaced an old wooden deck that was rotting. He replaced it with concrete and pavers. I mean, that's defensible space around his house. new siding, new roof, enclosing underneath your the space underneath your deck. This all counts. The numbers add up very, very fast. And it's very important that you report it. These reports are due November 15th. Isn't that right? I think November 15th. So it's important we get this information in. Okay, so we only have a few minutes left. And where are we here? Okay. So the last thing is to let you know that on our next meeting will be November 2nd, and we'll be discussing forest health. We'll have some experts that will sort of piggyback on a lot on what Jamie just told us and give us an idea of just what a healthy forest looks like. December 7th, we're going to be talking about insurance, everybody's favorite subject. And as I said at the beginning of the meeting, in January, we're not going to have a meeting. We'll resume again in February. So with the remaining 5 minutes that we have, are there any questions that anybody has or anything for the good of the order? Okay, if not, everybody stay safe, have a happy Halloween. Don't eat too much candy, and we'll come back to see everybody on November 2nd. So thank you very much for your time tonight. We appreciate it.
I have a quick comment if you don't mind.
Yes.
So sorry, it took a little bit to get to the mute button. One suggestion, if there is any time frame that the power goes out and your internet goes out, please contact the California PUC and complain about the fact that the critical infrastructure of your internet has gone down. I'm one of those folks who all we have coming into our house is 2 mobile phones and the internet. We have nothing else for communications, and our mobile phones are in a very bad position. So I complain on a regular basis, and the companies are required to respond to that. And it also shows the PUC that there's a significant community interest in this. So please contact them.
Okay, thank you very much for that. All right. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. See you all later. See you on November 2nd when Scott will be back with us. And hopefully the jokes will be better. So good night, everybody.